Looks like we're live. What's going on, Stephen? It's like you beat everybody here. Welcome to Distilling 101 Q&A, where there's no stupid questions, only the ones you don't ask. So I don't know, Clint might not be with us tonight. He may be in and out. He's got a lot of stuff going on. He's been busy and busy doing some things this evening, so he may be in and out, he said. So I'm going to have to try to keep up with everybody tonight. It's going to be tough. All right, let's see here. Let me get this link shared with everybody, and you know the drill. Got to go through my list here. It's not any easier now than it ever been. We'll see how many I get to share this week. That's always the big question. We'll find out soon enough. So, hope everybody's having a good weekend. It's been pretty nice here. We had some tornadoes a few days ago in northern Kentucky. Prayers for everybody up there. Hope everybody's doing all right. Hate hearing that. I did read somewhere in the weather thing that a lot of what used to be Hurricane Alley has shifted eastward, which is not good for Missouri and Kentucky and Ohio, Tennessee area. So hopefully that doesn't. We're going to have a pretty tough summer too with this El Nino. Where it's going to be a really warm summer. So get those air conditioners ready. Better get these links out. Bear with me, y'all. I can't see your comments, so when I do this, so I'll have Clint here to talk and answer. See, he might be in and out. He's been busy. He's got a lot of shit going on. That's understandable. Time to time, we all get. Where is that? Oh, there it is. Damn. Further down than usual. I don't know what was up with that. Let's see. Oh, sorry I missed Tuesday, everybody. I wasn't feeling well. I ate late and took a little nap before what I thought was going to be the show, and woke up feeling bad. I should have known better than eat tacos and a lot of spicy stuff and then go to sleep on it and take a nap on it. I'll try to remember not to do that again. It's anytime I do that, I wake up sick a lot of times. So, and I can't eat like before I go to bed. I have to eat something light if I eat at all. Probably shouldn't eat at all. All right, let's see. How many of these I get out. We will see. Going a little slowly tonight. I had my internet go out last night. That doesn't happen too often. Just to say, I've been pretty happy with my internet services. Pretty good deal. And pretty fast. Got fiber here. $2 gigs. It's pretty fast. Got a real good deal on it too. It's $70 a month. That's not too shabby for 2 gigs. I know a lot of people paying that for megs down, So I'm real pleased with that. All right, so we got a little more than we used to. Wish I could have gotten that one out, but I'll just put a little marker there. Remind me at 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock. 9:06. I'm getting better at this. Let's see what that was. That might have been a notification for this. It is. Okay. All right, so let's see here. What's going on, GW? Good to see you, brother. I appreciate it, Steve. Definitely. What's going on, Gip? Good to see you, brother. Are you really? Man, you're supposed to start a little bit later so we can kind of drink at the same time, brother. Head start, move the head. Drink some of this 140 OS. Is hot octane. This keeps getting better though, man. Shots, everybody. I ain't talked to West in a while. I need to get up with him. It's been a bit. All right, GW. Get to bed, brother. We'll see. Have a good one, my friend. Yeah, we had some tomatoes over here. And I guess they had some other places as well. I had some other friends online that said they had some problems and issues. But yeah, sent the Anna on up to Florence and had a few. What's going on, O'Shane? Good to see you, man. That's awesome. How'd they like that? I bet they was impressed, weren't they, man? It's great to see the reactions from your friends the first time they try your wine or your distillate or your meat or beer. They're like, wow. And they're shocked that, you can do this at home. And they're like, wow, teach me. I want to learn. A lot of my friends, when I first turned them on to some of my wine and stuff, they're like, man, you need to have some wine classes and teach us how to do this. So I probably will. Did Oklahoma get it bad? I don't know. It's they said Tornado Alley was shifting east. I mean, that's look, did Oklahoma get some bad tornadoes? Oh yeah, let's see. Looks like a lot of this same storm system. Well, that's right. The same storm system pushed through. Yeah, that's terrible, man. Terrible, terrible. Good to see you, Mike. Glad you're here, brother. Really, all the way up in Maine. Wow. Do you all get a lot of tornadoes up there? That's kind of a rare thing, or yeah, I don't. You really don't hear that. Yeah, me too, man. And fajitas. We a lot of times we'll have these steaks. I get big, thick steaks. I like them big and thick. And with the leftovers next night, Ann makes the steak fajitas with peppers and onions. And technically, it wasn't really tacos; it was steak fajitas. I should correct my. No, we had tacos too. From we had some leftover taco meat from a couple of days prior, so um, we had both tacos and fajitas, steak fajitas, and all those peppers and onions and taco and spice and salsa. And probably ate like had dinner like at 4. I'm like, well, I'll take me a little nap, till 6:30 or 7:30, and I wasn't feeling well. And woke up, man. I was like, no, not tonight. I was pretty bad. What's going on, Seashine? Good to see you, brother. Over here, I thought you was over there. What's going on, Jeremy? Good to see you, man. How's it going, brother? What's up, Curtis? Bad service. Oh man, it's good. $70. I mean, I do gaming. If it wasn't for that, I could probably get like a $29 or $39 plan and just, for reading emails and doing Facebook. And yes, it doesn't really not very graphic intensive or data intensive, but for a lot of the gaming and stuff I do, I got 3 different computers set up here, and yeah, it can get pretty data intensive. And Nan's over trying to watch a movie on Netflix while I'm gaming, and if I had regular internet, that'd be no bueno. Question about freeze distilling. All right. Why is it not as popular, even though for home distilling you just need a bucket and a chest? Well, you have to get it really, really cold. So, and a lot of times people don't have a lot of room for it. Second is it makes a distillate that will give you some really bad hangovers because you're really not separating the heads, and 4 shots out and the tails out. It's still all there together. So basically, all you're doing is pulling water from it, and all the rest is still there. So Applejack, they call it jacking, freeze distillation, and it's still, considered distilling under the federal guidelines. But it has have good taste, good flavor, but it can make for some mean hangovers if you drink a lot of it. So a lot of people will do it, and it was really an old method. It's been used for centuries, probably centuries for sure. So, a lot of people do it, but after they get those hangovers, okay, maybe I'll just distill it the next time. Hello, Miss Lisa. Good to see you. I appreciate you, brother. Yeah, GW. Tennessee Shine Co. Awesome. It's not as good as yours, is it? Did it last night? Mine went down about that same time. And a buddy of mine that streams games and stuff, he's out in Arizona, and his went down about that time too. So I don't know. Some 120, man. I'm hitting this damn 140 proof Westgate. I mean, that makes my liver quiver. I tell you, I'm not gonna lie. It's it's some pretty stout stuff. I have to sip it. Yeah, I'm sipping too for sure. What's going on, John? Good to see you, brother. Yeah, I'm sipping too. I can't drink that stuff. But after you drink that 140, man, you drink some 80 proof, you know, whiskey, 80 proof whiskey, and it's like drinking beer. Ever done a sour sugar wash using? I've used back set in it, trying to flavor it up some, and I have done uh, a rum what they call it, the dunder pit thing, and had it outside. And man, it was talking about yellow jackets and flies, and it stunk in a barrel. And I don't know, man. After just looking at it, smelling it, and seeing it, I just couldn't bring myself to dipping into that to my liquor, man. But I have I attempted it, but I didn't like it. It didn't work out well, and I just soon not worry about the dunder pit thing. And but sour mashing, I've done a lot of that. But yeah, saving back set for pH adjustments and things like that. But yeah, with your sugar wash, when you do that, make sure you're using your oyster shells to buffer, because that's one of the issues with sugar washes is having that lower pH, and generally it's sour mash or dunder pits and all that you know comes with lowering pH as well. So it's kind of a double-edged sword there. You don't really want to. You need those oyster shells when you do it. But I just did the dunder pit thing one season, and it just I was like, nope. And the thought of them, having dead animals in there and using it, I'm like, man, that's just, I don't think that's for me. If somebody hands me a bottle and they did that with dunder pit things and I wasn't seeing or knowing it, I could probably drink it fine. Kind of like, killing a turtle and cleaning it up, be mud turtle and clean it up and to eat. It's fine to eat unless you clean it. And if you clean it and have to smell that and see it, it changes things when you eat it, because you still got that thought in the back of your mind. And the same would be with that dunder pit. It's pretty nasty. Yeah. So they want that shine too, huh? Well, that's right. Gotta cover your bases before you graduate to the next level. Yeah, it's his daughter, not girlfriend. His daughter, not girlfriend. Lobster NATO, yep. Yeah, I thought so, man. I've never heard of a lot up there. Like that hurricane that hit up there, you see a few, but not a lot. What's going on, Mikey? How you doing, brother? Did it? I watched the first show. Part of it was I didn't even know it was a shit show. Was that even scheduled? I didn't even know they were having it. To be honest, I didn't look on the calendar. I was thinking Damon was supposed to be doing something, but he was out. I guess it was. Let me see here. I can't see a damn thing here. Well, I guess the calendar still says May, so I guess we're a month behind on that. I don't see a June calendar. Damon's slack-a-lacking again, leaving us out on Tuesday, and now no monthly thing here. We've had festivals. He's busy though, man. He's jogging between airports, getting carried over and moved to different places. He's been pretty busy lately. Right. Yeah. I don't know. Some of the white dog I've tasted has pretty neutral flavor. It's not getting a lot of corn or the grains, uh, as opposed to some others. Corn liquor that I taste that has a really good corn flavor. You're not late, brother. You're just fine. Everybody's just starting to roll in. What's going on, Frank? Good to see you, brother. Yeah, yeah, it was pretty disgusting. It was covered in flies, yellow jackets, and hard to keep ants and everything out. You got all that. It just on the side. It just wasn't looking good. It was it's a big no. I like making wine and stuff. I know it's different. You're distilling and it's different, but being a winemaker and stuff and seeing that and always trying to be more sanitary and clean, and then seeing that, it's like, man, I just no, no, no. It wasn't something I wanted to do. No, no, Baxter's great for that. It's perfectly fine. And what you get out of it, it's you can use as a cleaner because there'll be some liquor coming out too, with your back set, unless you run it all the way down. A lot of people stop at 70, 60, 70, 80, 90 proof, when they running, which they should run some of those tails out. You're losing a lot of liquor when you do that. But yeah, perfectly fine. Great for copper and cleaning copper. It's acidic. Isn't that, GW? I have not. I would say that's pretty common. I'd say it's probably pretty similar to the air steel. I'm thinking that the Mod Vodka maker basically is like an air steel, and got quite a few people in the community that use them. I'm not one of them. It's I've got other parts to buy, for my main setup. Before I'm going to chuck a couple $100 down for a air steel or a vodka maker. But I don't know. I'd say it'd be pretty tough to make cuts on one of them. I'm not sure what you know, how does the proof come out? I heard of, oh yeah, I did see that part. Yeah, I did. I heard about that. Yeah, I did see that. Yeah, he got covered in dog puke. Yeah, yeah. I've forgotten that's how it ended last night. What's going on in West Virginia, brother? Lunatic Gamer. Mm-hmm. So you ever played the Arc Raiders and Call of Duty? I'm sure. I'm waiting. I can't wait for this fall for the new Call of Duty to come out. And they just came out Fortune's Keep again, and good to hear that the nuke option is back. They're going to be back in a couple of days if you're a COD gamer. Told a couple of nights ago not to stop. That's awesome, man. That's great. It's awesome news, man. That's great to hear that, isn't it? Gives you that reassurance and that reinforcement that you need to, like, well, got other people enjoying it too. Because I've got friends that don't even drink that still do this. They make wine and distill and make brandies and whiskeys and stuff. And it's just to impress their friends and family and make, for gifts and stuff. And just cause it's a fun hobby. He's going to be in and out. He's got some stuff he's got to get caught up on and some work he's got to do. So he's going to be in and out tonight as he can. He's busy. So we'll make do without him and try our best. But I hope he's doing well. What's going on, James? Good to see you, brother. Oh, I'm not Philbilly now. That's what on the videos you've seen is Philbilly now. That's his son. Yeah. Yeah, he's a good kid. I got to go visit him this. I got to play Santa this year and go and visit him and give his toys to him. He's a pretty good boy. Yeah, there's nothing like it, man. Get that reinforcement from your family. Because my family's very, very critical, and yeah, GTA is one of the games I've never really played much. I'm more into the first person shooter, Call of Duty, Counter Strike, um, a lot of different games, Medal of Honor, all those games. Lots of them, man. It's hard for me to remember, but trying to think. Rainbow Six, yeah, a bunch of those. But yeah, I may try this GTA out when it comes out. But yeah, it's great. My family's very critical and they're very honest. And they will let you know if it's good or bad, and they're not a bit tactful in the way they say it either. And so I took some wine by, first time I made wine years and years ago, and took it by for a Christmas celebration that we all have together. And I'm like, yeah, they all bring their fine wines, 20, 30, $40 bottles plus, expensive wines and stuff. And they're not box wines or stuff. And so I brought my stuff, I had some cherry wine and some grape wine and my white wine too, my sweet heat. And they're like, "Oh, you made wine," and I'm like, "Oh," you could tell they're like the way they said it. "Oh, you made some wine," and they're like dreading the thought of they're going to have to drink it. Because they're like when they drink it, they were pretty much almost holding their nose as they held the cup up, and seeing their face after they took a sip of it, and they're like, "Well, this isn't bad." It's like this not as bad as I expected. Basically, what they were saying. So that was, hearing them enjoy it and saying, "Damn, this is actually pretty good." That's what he said. Yeah, this is actually pretty good. And, actually pretty good. So they weren't expecting it to be good. My dad loved it. And it's strong. My wine was very, very much stronger than a normal wine. And so they were definitely loving it. They were definitely enjoying it. And it wasn't too astringent. It was still a young wine and it had some astringency to it, but, it wasn't real bad. And for those that don't know, the astringency flavor is when you first drink a wine right after it's made and it hasn't matured yet and it hasn't had a chance to estrify. You can still taste like the isopropyl alcohols in it. It's real alcoholy tasting. And when people, that's the only way you can really describe it is it's alcoholy tasting. It tastes like alcohol. And you're not used to that in your wines. You're used to the alcohol being there, but not as pronounced, as the and astringent as the alcohol flavor when you drink them before they're mature. And so these had matured quite a bit, but weren't fully mature. The grapes, especially grape wines, but the cherry wine was really good. And they all appreciated that, liked it. Cooked grains still too hot to add yeast. Yep. Yeah. You can definitely. Yeah. And in fact, once you use your glucoamylase, it's better to kind of let that work overnight if you got an opportunity to, if you're not in a hurry or anything like that. But stir the shit out of it when you get ready to add your yeast. Really oxygenate it really well, and that'll help the yeast breathe and help get a good colony of yeast going. And it also helps prevent other things from getting a foothold like lactose and other bacterial loads. So yeah, stir it up real well, and that'll be fine. In fact, letting it sit overnight definitely helps the glucoamylase finish the debranching of the you know triglycerides and diglycerides and and will definitely make some more monosaccharides, I should say. Trisaccharides and oligosaccharides, not glyceride. But yeah, it'll help debranch those and make monosaccharides, and which is what your yeast really like. So if you have an opportunity to, it's good to let it sit overnight like that. Let that glucose work. I think he's done some bubble gum already. Yeah, he's already done some bubble gum, man. He's done about a bunch. Yeah, the marshmallow sounded really good, didn't it? Yep. Yeah, I played a lot of Medal of Honor. Actually, at one time, I was ranked 14th in kills on Medal of Honor. Had a buddy of mine, me and him played every night, many hours, but he was a teacher. He was an ex-Marine. He's a teacher, and he had to go to work, whereas I was working at home. And when I wasn't working, I could jump in there and play. And I was 14th in Europe and America servers. I say in the world, but it was actually Europe and America servers, and China and Africa, I guess, were on a different set of servers. But that was during Allied Assault, I think. Yep. I don't remember that. Don't remember that game. But I kind of got away from when I had a child, and then she got to gaming age, and she started wanting to play games, and so I kind of got away from my first person shooters, and that's about when Fortnite and all this other PUBG and all that came out. So I never did play all that, Halo and all those. I was playing Minecraft with my daughter, having fun. Okay, Matt, I'm trying to get my mash up. I can only get to 1.050 using 2 pounds of corn per gallon and using the amylase formula. So you're using the high temp alpha. If you're using a powder amylase, that's about all you can expect. But if you're using the high temp alpha and the liquid glucose, we can get you. Should I be using straight alpha amylase? Do you mash 150? No. Okay. First of all, you want to take that temperature of your cooking your corn to gelatinize your corn properly and break up the starches in that. You're going to want to get it to about 185 plus degrees. Really, I mean, you can do it at 150, but it takes many, many, many hours. It would take 10, 12 hours to gelatinize corn at that temperature, and it still wouldn't be a good gelatinization. You really want to get it up high temperature. So you want to get to 185 to 200. The best method is to get your water boiling, and I mean hard boiling, and get it to about close to 210 as you can, right? And then cut your heat way down or off. I just cut way, way, way down, and then start adding in your corn and stirring constantly. And and if you can, keep a couple of gallons of that boiling water to the side and keep it hot. That way you can keep adding a little bit, a little bit, a little bit at a time as you need to maintain that 185 plus temperature for 90 minutes at least. That was the first thing, that you want to do. Then if you're using the high temp liquid amylase, the alpha high temp alpha liquid, you want to add that at about 185. And as when you get done gelatinizing, some people say to add it as you're gelatinizing. It's hard to tell your gelatinization point when it's keeping it thin. So, adding that alpha at the beginning, you can do that. Some recommend it, but it's hard to tell that your corn is getting gelatinized if you have that in there already, because it thins it out really quickly. So, adding that after, it gelatinizes at 185, the high temp liquid, then let it do its thing, stir it, and it'll start getting really thin on you. And then you can cut the heat off if you still have heat. One of the best ways a lot of people do is the steeping method. And that's just to, pour that hot boiling water inside a cooler or something that's insulated really well. And then, having of course, some water outside still boiling, like for example, if you're doing, 20 pounds of grain and 10 gallons of water, the 2 pounds, you can keep a couple of gallons out. So just start with 8, put your cracked corn and, ground up corn in there, stir it up. And then every 15 minutes, add a little bit of hot water, stir it in, add a little more hot water, stir it in as time progresses until 90 minutes to 2 hours is up. Then you should be gelatinized. It'll look like corn pudding. It'll be gelled and you'll be able to tell. And then, take a temperature and at 185, you can add that high temp alpha and stir it. And use that steep method works really well. And then, just wait and wait and wait. A lot of people that have chillers will go ahead and once they get that high temp alpha in there and get it thinned out, you'll notice it thin out really quickly. It's almost like miracle because you'll go from this thickest, sloppiest gel, that's really thick to liquidy again, and as it keeps working, it'll keep getting more and more liquidy. It's amazing how well it works. But once you get down to, the whatever your liquid glucose calls for on the label, some of it says 140, some's 120, some's 100. I guess maybe depends on the combination. I think some of the glucose might have some beta amylase in it, and some of them may have different types of amylase to help break down, glutens as well. Just go by the temperature on the label when you add that. If doing that doesn't get that right there should definitely help you out a lot, because if you're just doing it at 150 for an hour, you do the 185 to plus for 90 minutes to 2 hours, and you'll definitely get it, gelatinized real well. And that breaks out all those starches from the corn. And then you'll be able to chop those up. They call it cleaving. You'll be able to cleave all those up into oligosaccharides and dextrins, and then your glucose will come in and debranch all those out and finish it up for you. And you should probably get another 10 out of that. So you'll get 106. If that doesn't work, you can increase the amount of corn you use. So go to 2 to 2.25 to 2.5 pounds, per gallon. You can increase that a little bit if you want to get that, gravity up. If doing it this way doesn't get it up higher, you can add a little bit of grains. I'd start with 2.25 maybe, and that'll help get it up as well. Be a little thicker, than you're used to, but it'll still work out just fine. But yeah, let it sit overnight after you add that glucoamylase. Perfect to let it sit overnight. Actually, you want to. But also make sure that you check the pH of your water that you're boiling. You want that to be at 5.3. That'll help in your conversions as well. So, a lot of people wait until it's time to pitch yeast to adjust pH. You really should adjust your pH before you do your conversion, because having that acidic water helps break those bonds, those glycosidic bonds, just like in making inverted sugar. So, yeah. So keep, get your pH down, add some citric acid, lemon juice, whatever, to get your pH down to around 5.3, and then it'll help you convert as well. But if you got any more questions, and if it doesn't work, then let me know, and we can go to, number 2, see what else is going on. But yeah, if it doesn't, doing that will definitely bring it up. What's going on, Brandon? Good to see you, man. I'm doing good. How about you, brother? I like to do a THX infusion. That sounds like some music. I know what you're saying. The only thing I've done is steeping, right? I've just made the high proof, and you want to get as high vodka proof as you can, because what happens is if you've got water in it, it makes it green, and you'll get a real green chlorophyll-y looking, mix instead of, something more amber like, which is what a lot of people, want. But yeah, use really, really, really high proof, and you can extract a lot of THC with alcohol. That's one of the extraction methods is using alcohol, or carbon dioxide, is another method that people use, or they also use what is it? I'm trying to think of the It's butane. They use butane, which is kind of very dangerous, and cooking off butanes and stuff. And I've seen them do it in 2 liter jugs. Very, very dangerous. Don't recommend using that method. So alcohol is probably one of the best methods to actually, extract THC from plants. Yeah, it is. Watching that amylase take that from a big, thick gel like that and thin it out just so instantly and so little. It's like there's no way this little teaspoon is going to thin all that out. And it's like you pour it and it's like one little teeny puddle in a big, huge pot. It's like there's no way this is going to work. So people tend to overuse it because they just don't realize it doesn't take much. And you just want to stir the hell out of it, though, because you want to get it stirred in. And once you stir that in and it gets in contact with all these, sugars, yeah, all these polysaccharides, man, it starts breaking them up, and it's called hydrolyzing. It's liquefaction of it. Yeah, it's amazing how well it works. Yeah, yeah, that's perfect. 180, 185 is perfect. Yep. What's going on, Doug? Good to see you, brother. No, don't give up. Don't give up. And even at 1060, 1060 is not a failure, right? So a lot of commercial distilleries are happy with 1060. 1060 is not a failure by any stretch of the imagination. That's still a good beer and it'll still make a good whiskey. It's just not going to produce as much. But some people feel that makes some of the smoothest, best corn liquor that you can do. So it's definitely not a failure at 1060, not at all. But if you want to get the 1070, 1075, you did say 1050. But yeah, it's still not a failure. It still makes good smooth liquor. You're just not going to get the production, right, that you could have had you extracted all the sugars out of that corn. And you're going to probably potentially run into maybe some, an issue. How did it finish? Or are you still working on it? But yeah, there's no doubt that if you increase that temperature from 150 to 185 plus and start with a hard boil, like I said, at 210, that definitely will help you out a lot. And keep some water to the side and keep adding it. Boiling water, take some out of the original 10 gallons. If, like, for example, you started with 20 pounds, 10 gallons, 2-to-1 ratio, 2 pounds to 1, right? Yeah, it'll definitely help you out, brother. Definitely heat it up more. And you don't have to do the steep method. You can still cook. It's just cut way back on that heat, because all you want to do is just maintain that heat. You're not wanting to heat it up anymore. You just want to maintain it. And adding that water is going to maintain it. So, but stirring. Yeah, that's awesome. That's about as you can't expect to get any more than that. Now, but you probably did use more than 2 pounds per gallon to get that too. But that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, a lot of times if you do 3 and you get a perfect conversion, you can get that. But it gets really thick, and for a lot of people, it's just too thick to work, and it scorches easily. So if you steep, but yeah, that's awesome. That's as good. Yeah, 3 pounds. I figured. You can actually cut that back a little bit if you want to. It's definitely not a failure at that number, but it's going to be a little bit more difficult to work, and it's going to be probably not going to produce as much volume wise. It's going to be harder to separate, but hey, I used to have to do 3 when I used the powdered amylase. That's why I made sure he was using the high temp alpha, because the powder that you add at 150, it's not near as effective, and you have to keep it at 150 for that period of time as well. And so you gelatinize the corn at 185, 90 plus, and then let it cool to 150, and then add the powdered amylase in. And then you have to maintain that temperature in the powdered amylase in the corn for 90 minutes as well. And it just never converted quite as well for me. So using the liquid high temp alpha, I'm able to go to, I use about 2.25 pounds. If I'm doing straight corn, I'll do 2.25, you know. to 2.5, somewhere in that range. I used to have to do 3 though with the powder. So yeah, with this high temp alpha, yeah, you could definitely save a little bit on the corn and cut it back a little bit, make it a little bit easier, more manageable, and you won't notice the difference in your liquor, you know. But yeah, that's awesome. Good job. I got a dehydrator. You know, I've used my dehydrator to dehydrate fruit. I kind of let that trick out of the bag years ago when a lot of people were talking about when infusions and infusion ports into everybody started using jar rigs and infusers and a lot of that. I'm like, you know, one of the best tricks is to use dried fruit because that water in the fruit that you use waters down the flavor, right? And it waters down, you know, your infusing. So if you dehydrate it and use those dried fruits, man, they infuse so much better. But yeah, absolutely. And for liquidy things like watermelon and you know juices that are heavily, you know, fruits that have a lot of liquids in them like a watermelon, reducing those, right, cooking off some of the water without actually scorching or burning, you know, the whatever the liquid is you're cooking off, watermelon or whatever. If you can kind of dehydrate that and reduce it, kind of like you would do a syrup, right? Like you would do, you know, a maple syrup, and the same process. You're cooking off that to get to the sugars, right? You just don't want to get to the certain point where you start caramelizing them because then you make them complex sugars. What's going on, Lee? Good to see you, brother. Hello, Miss Marie. How are you today? Hope you're feeling better. And I hope your surgery goes well. I was opening it up. I knew it was coming, but Monday. So hopefully things will go well. But we'll keep you in our prayers, Jess. Yeah, I'll be at Hillary Jam. I'll be there. Yeah, I try to make. I'll definitely make Beattyville and Hillbilly Jam and Farm to Bottle every year. You know, those are all fairly close. I definitely want to do popcorn one year. Maybe I'll substitute a Hillbilly Jam with a popcorn one year, and but Hillbilly's always crowded and a lot of people go, and it's a lot of fun. And oh, you'll be fine. We definitely keep you in our prayers. Wanting to do a run that starts high proof to flavor a different way. Well, you want to proof it down. You don't want to, you know, distill real high proof. So add some water or what do you want to flavor it with? So a lot of times, like if you do a brandy, you can have a brandy back set that's got some flavor in it that you can proof down with and redistill. That's kind of the way they do cognac, right? And it can give you a really heavy flavor, but some feel sometimes it's too much, right? It's just too heavy and it doesn't have as much character. It's not a very light thing, and flavors get muddied, you know, so it's kind of just a one, there's no front end, middle, and back end. It's all just boom, this one flavor. But yeah, if you're wanting to add flavor, post flavor. You know, used to back in the day, that was a big, huge no, and everybody'd say, "Oh my God, I can't believe he said that. I hate him," and they would get worked up over that. You know, post flavoring, but it's like a mixed drink. You know, um, and that's really good. But if you want to get good flavors, definitely want to proof it down less than 80 to be on the safe side. Um, 80 proof or less. That means 40%, right, or less. But try to get some infusion rigs or use a thumper with flavor infused into the thumper and try to run it through the infuser and try to pull some flavor that way. What is it that you want to flavor it with? Is there any particular flavor that you're going for, or any concentrate that you want to use to flavor, or to infuse? What flavor are we trying to get? Knowing that will help a lot. But definitely want to proof down to 80 or less. A lot of people will argue, no, you don't have to do that, and it's a set rule for a reason. It's a safety thing. Yeah, shots to all the fathers out there for Father's Day. Hell yeah, I'll drink to that. My daughter's not feeling well, so we might not go out to eat tomorrow, but we'll definitely go out sometime this next week. And I'm taking my dad out. I'll probably go out with him Tuesday. He doesn't like big crowds, so we'll wait and go Tuesday when Ann's off and go eat. But yeah, Chris, let us know what kind of flavor are we trying to achieve, and what did we start with? So we starting with a neutral or a corn liquor, or what was the base, and what flavor are you trying to achieve? And we can definitely help you. So you want to take a high proof and add strawberry or blackberry or lemon. So a lemon cello is interesting. If you like a lemon, and you can proof it down and just add the lemons to it and let them soak and infuse. That works well. If you do that, you can only take the zest of the peel, but the white part you want to take off. The yellow, you can they've got these zest things that just it's like a file basically that they use culinary, and they scrape off all the color off that, and you can get some good flavors out of that. But the white part you want to leave out because it's got a really bitter taste to it. And then of course you can add the rest of the lemon to it. But if you use the juice, that's great. But strawberry flavors, using some sort of concentrate would be fine. Fresh strawberries don't do real well. They're not real sweet. Blackberries are fine. But if you want to muddle them up and put them in an infuser, that works well, especially with the blackberries. They carry well. And you can put some, make a little sweet syrup and blackberry, muddle some blackberry in it and mix it. Boil it up, cook it up, and pour it through a strainer and get all your particles out, and then just mix it with your high proof. And that works out real well. And then, but you want to proof it down. You want to get it adding a lot of that sugar and blueberry. So if you start with like 100 and you add 20%, it's going to take it down to 80, but it's going to add a lot of flavor. So if you don't mind post flavoring, that's definitely the way to go, for sure. Because you can definitely get a lot better flavors. And I know Phil puts out a lot of videos where, and there's others putting them out, and where they're taking fruits, muddling them up, cooking them with some sugar and some lemon juice to help break that down and make a simple syrup out of it. I was talking about earlier how adding that acid helps break those glycosidic bonds. What they do is they take a table sugar, which is a glucose and a fructose bonded together, and they break that bond and make it all monosaccharides. And it's actually sweeter than sugar when you do that. So you can make the simple syrup. And I think you have to be really careful when you do that. You have to follow a good recipe, and you have to cook it to 237 degrees, and then no more, anymore, it'll caramelize. So if it starts browning, you want to cut back on your heat. You don't want it to brown. You don't want to caramelize your sugar because that makes a more complex sugar. So it's kind of defeating the purpose. But yeah, it's, do that, and or just mix it up. If you're not wanting to make simple syrup, you can just mix it up and heat it all up together, and not bring it to a boil and dissolve your sugars in it, and then add your flavors, and then add the liquor and just let it sit for a few days, and then run it through a um, either a coffee filter or a strainer to get any particles out of the fruits. But yeah, that works real well and makes really good drinks. But 20 years ago, 30 years ago, man, no way. Do that with moonshine was crazy heresy. But we're not just making moonshine anymore. We're making vodkas, we're making gins, we're making more than just corn liquor. We're making multi grains. We're doing a lot more than just making a moonshine, right? But technically, yeah, oh yeah, they are. There's some really good ones, and sometimes you can substitute brown sugar, depending on the recipe. Like if you're using a banana, you want to get a banana flavor, banana and the brown sugar work well together, and it kind of creates a kind of a rummy, kind of base. Okay, started with apple and apple cider today and boiled melt sugar. Well, what you need is a hydrometer. So once you do all that, you can drop a hydrometer in there and you can measure it, and it'll tell you how much sugars that you have in there. And what proof that you'll come out with is totally based on the sugars that's in there. Now, if you're talking about making a just an apple type beer, you it probably depends on the sugar. But if it's something that you're going to distill, it's going to be this will tell you how much alcohol you can expect to get as far as production wise. So a hydrometer helps a whole lot. Um, Let me show you a picture of one here. Oh yeah, definitely double pot. What's going on, Mash Brothers? So let me find a picture of the hydrometer I'm talking about, because there's two different hydrometers. One hydrometer is what's called a triple scale hydrometer, and it'll basically tell you how much sugars you have in your mash, right? And it'll tell you how much sugars that you've got in this combination that you've got. So the other one just measures proof of alcohol. So after you distill it, it will tell you how much alcohol that you have. So let me give you a picture here of a hydrometer. And then I'll show you the scale that they use on with it. Okay. So this is what your hydrometer is going to look like. Sometimes it'll have different colors, but this is basically what it is. And if you look over to the right here, you can see where it says 1.00000. That's basically water. So once you start getting sugars in there, you go 1.010, 1.020, and that's in your beer range. 1030, 1060, 405060 gets into the beer, and then 70890 into the wine range. And if you see to the right of that, it tells you 5% alcohol. So if you want 6% alcohol, you'll be at about a 1045, 1046. See that? So that tells you how much alcohol by volume you'll have if all the sugars that you have in there that are reading at this gravity will actually ferment out, right? So the higher that number goes, the more alcohol, but also the hotter it can get as well. So when you started out with that, when you get it, but this is at room temperature. So this is all 60, 70 degrees, what you want to measure it at. They do make a conversion chart if you want to measure it hot, but best to let it cool down and then see what gravity you have and what gravity you're starting at. Generally want to be in the green. 1060, 1070, 80, somewhere in that range produces pretty good smooth alcohol and at a pretty decent range, about 10%, 8 to 10% alcohol is fine. Some people like to push it a little bit and get 1080, 1090, which is fine. Going over that, it starts to get hot. It'll definitely start to get really hot on you. And that's, I guess, why it gets in the red down there. It's definitely going to be, if it's something that you're going to distill, like double distill a vodka or something like that, you can kind of sneak into there, but it's going to be pretty fiery. But, using this hydrometer when you first get done mixing this together will tell you what your potential is. And then as things ferment, it will ferment out and get closer and closer to that 1.000. Once the yeast have consumed the sugars, as they consume the sugars, this will drop. So it'll go from, let's say you start at 1.070, it'll drop to 1.060, 5.0, 4.0, 3.0, 2.0, 1.0. And then when it gets close to 1, or at 1 or a little less, that means that you're ready to go, right? You're ready to distill, or you're ready to stop the yeast working and make a wine or beer out of it, right? But it would depend on how much sugars. I do know that apple juice and cider, basically most of your store-bought apple juice will alone, without adding any sugar, will be a 1.040. Every time I've done it, I've used Kroger brand, Meyer, Mott's, and basically most all that's a 1.040. So depending on how much sugar you added, it's going to be higher than that, but it would definitely be, based on that. These things sell for about $5, $6 on Amazon. You can buy the pair. You can get the triple scale and the proofing hydrometer in sets. Some of them will come with a little silicone graduated cylinder, which is nice to measure your gravity in. And also, when you're measuring the gravity, make sure you separate the liquid from the solids. Just don't drop it in the pot with all the solids and everything there, because it's going to affect your reading. So you want to kind of strain off some just liquid only and put it in one of these test graduated cylinders to test with, and you'll get a good solid reading. And then it'll tell you when it's finished and ready to go too. So it's definitely a very important piece of equipment to have for such a small price. Oops, didn't want to do that. Why did that happen? Okay, that's better. I don't know why it's doing that. Okay, we're better. Sorry, scared everybody there. Boom, in your face. Is it a good idea to double pot still? I was going to do a stripping run with my 30 gallon and then go to my smaller 10 gallon. Absolutely. But be sure to proof it down. Yeah, absolutely. So when you start with a 30, you're going to get what, few gallons, 2.5, 3 gallons of higher proof, and then just proof that down to 80, and you'll get the 5 or 6 to put into your 10-gallon pot, 5, 6, 7, proof down to 80 to put into there. But when you do, make sure you save those tails, and I always will pitch off some. A lot of people say you don't need to, just strip it all out. But the 4 shots, the first thing come off, I always just pitch those to the side, regardless whether I'm stripping or finishing. But again, that's just personal preference. Wife and I experimenting with some Jolly Ranchers, American Born 106 Shine. I love me some Jolly Ranchers. I've made some with watermelon and green apple and love it. Good stuff. You just drop about 20 in a quart and just let them infuse. You'll get some floaties, and if you want to, you can pour it through a coffee filter and get those out. And yeah, makes good stuff. I love them. The green apple is really good too. What's going on, Bear Wolf? Good to see you, brother. What's up, Mike? Good to see you, my friend. Now, one thing you want to make note of when you keep records, don't say whiskey, vodka, moonshine. It's always wine or beer, right? These are wine and beer recipes. And that way, you won't have any evidence, because, if you got all these recipes that you're using to make a distillate, can be used against you, if they come in and take all this stuff. So always just put wine and beer, because those are legal to make. You'll know what they're for. So all your grains, those are beer recipes, and all the brandies and wine, that's wine recipes. Hell yeah, that's perfect, brother. Yeah, you want to let it cool down anyway overnight, and add those glucoamylase and give them a chance to work overnight anyway, JJ. Yeah, get that refractometer. You know, a lot of and it's good too because it helps you figure out proof even if you have sugars in there. Whereas a hydrometer kind of loses its shit when you start putting sugars in there. They call it barkeepers hydrometer too. They use it a lot. Barkeepers when they make mixed drinks and stuff, so they can do the recipe and then still see what the proof is on their mixed drinks. Mashes seem to be fermenting slowly and taking weeks to ferment. Is there a way to speed up the process? pH is good, and I'm using oyster shells. Is it a grain or is this fruits? If it's fruit, you want it to take weeks. If you're doing brandies and fruits, you definitely want to go the slow route. And it depends on your yeast and the temperatures. It's very temperature dependent. The speed of it will depend on fructose will take longer to ferment than glucose. So if you got monosaccharides of fructose, it will take longer to ferment than glucose. And generally speaking, making wines and things of that nature, you want them to ferment slower. It's better for them to ferment slowly. So that's not a bad thing. You just got to be patient. But for grains, if you're talking grains or washes, then bumping up your temperature and using a yeast that can handle the temperature bump if you don't want to increase a lot of your congeners. Some people intentionally increase the amount of heads for a reason, right? Because those will create flavor in the long run. 10 pounds of apples, 2 gallons of apple cider, and boiled with 10 pounds of sugar. When cool, 3 gallons of water. Okay. It's going to be really difficult to tell. See, 10 pounds of sugar. Now, believe this or not, 10 pounds of apples is about a half a gallon of juice. That's crazy. That's why, it's tough to buy apples. If you have apple trees or an apple orchard or know somebody that has an apple orchard and will let you just come pick anything off the ground, and you want to battle with the yellow jackets that's awesome. You can press those out. You can get hundreds and hundreds of pounds and whole truckloads full and, press the hell out of them and get your juice. But if you're buying them, it's not really economical to get a lot of juice that way, because it takes about 20 pounds to get a gallon, 22 pounds of apples to get a gallon. And of course, it'll vary by apple. Some are more juicy than others, some are more dry. But on the average, about 20 to 22 pounds of apples will be a gallon of juice. You can buy a gallon of juice for $1.50, $2, a couple of bucks. Whereas 20 pounds of apples, at $1.50, it's a lot of money, so it's a big difference. So, if you can get the free apples, definitely, it's awesome. But if not, getting the apple cider and the apple juice is definitely the way to go. Make sure that you get the 100% without the preservatives, and then add your sugar to that. It sounds like it's going to be a pretty high gravity though. Let's see. So you'll have 3. Yeah, you're going to have a really high gravity. You may get a stuck fermentation with that because it's going to be really high on that scale I just showed you. And that's one of the critical reasons to have that hydrometer is so you know exactly where on this scale you are. And if you've added too much sugar, you can always add some more water and kind of dilute it down, and it'll help you, back into a recipe just by using this hydrometer. That way you'll know exactly how much sugar, and you can use as much fruit as you want to, but at the end of the day, for most fruits, you're going to, for a true brandy, you shouldn't add any sugar, but in reality, you're going to have to add a little bit of sugar to get it up there to make it worth your time and trouble. And to do so, you want to use this hydrometer. So I'd get on Amazon or whoever, if you got a beer store nearby. Amazon's probably the cheapest, easiest for most. Um, get you one of these and a proofing hydrometer as well. And both great tools to have. Combinations probably going to be about $10 for the two, and maybe $12. You get a little graduated cylinder to come with it as well, and a bottle brush to clean your graduated cylinder with a lot of times, and a little card that'll give you the conversion. So if you're measuring at a higher temperature, you can use the conversion to get the actual gravity. But it's going to be pretty high gravity sounding from what you got there, Chris. If you get this, it's not too late to add some water to it when you get it in, or if you order it tomorrow, Sunday, by Wednesday or Thursday, you'll have it, maybe even sooner. And it's not too late. You can add some water to it if it's just way too, you know, high of a gravity. It's probably going to be at 1.130 or 20. It's going to be really thick and syrupy, with that much sugar. So, um, yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's definitely going to be a 102, somewhere in that range, just from looking at what you got with 2 gallon. Wait a minute. So you got 5 gallons of liquid, 10, that's 2 pounds. So yeah, you're going to be right at 1.1. It'll be okay-ish. It's going to be a little hot and fiery. You could add a little bit more water if you wanted to. Um, but yeah, definitely you need to add some nutrients. So if this is your first time, and what kind of yeast did you use? I mean, you can get some like bread yeast and just boil it, kill it off, let it cool off, and then just pour that in there and help feed the yeast that are in there. And but one thing that's going to happen is your pH is probably going to crash on you. And what we call for is putting oyster shells in there with it. You can get that at your farmer feed and supply store. Just get them. Coming in like a 40-pound bag for $12 or something like that. They're really cheap, and you can boil them up, clean them up, boil them up. I do that to kill out any bacteria, any problems. I'm kind of funny about that. And you want to boil it every time you use them to clean up anything, any sugars, bacteria that may build up from the last. Sometimes you get some organic matter in there and start bacterial buildups inside. It's very porous, so boiling it will definitely help kill all that off before you use them each time. But putting them in a little bag, brew bag or a cheesecloth bag, you wrap it up in some cheesecloth and tie a knot and throw it in there. But what happens is, as the organic acids are created during fermentation, which is a natural process, it will eat away at these oyster shells and buffer, and it'll help buffer and keep your pH from crashing, and keep your fermentation from getting stuck. Oh, thank you, Steve. Appreciate that, brother. Let me finish reading on down here before I do. Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But um, they can tell how much, what the proof is. Right, right. Different refractometer. I see what you're saying. Yeah. But a lot of bartenders do that for proofing, and they have a refractometer for proof as well. And they use it because with sugars, your hydrometer, you know, goes crazy. Grains and daddy yeast. Well, what's the temperature of your mash? And yeah, and use a starter. Don't just dump yeast on top. Always hydrate your yeast, regardless of what kind it is. Always hydrate it. Add it to 90, 95 degree water and shake it up. Add a little bit of sugar in there to get it breeding, and shake the shit out of it. Get it oxygenated. Then take your lid off, put a cloth over it, put it in a warm, dark place, and put it inside of a pan or something, because it's going to overflow most likely. And if it's real viable, it'll start foaming up a lot. Let it sit for about 15, 20 minutes. Check on it every 5 minutes or so, because it'll foam over on you and make a mess. But that's why you put it in a pot or something. That way you can just dump it all in there, clean it out, and wash it out with a little water and put all that in there. But yeah, always use a yeast starter to make sure and check how viable your yeast are. Right. Well, I want to get the combination where you could get the hydrometer proofing triple scale and the proofing hydrometer. And they sell those in kits, But yeah, I usually buy mine in 3 packs, and they're usually like $12, $4 a piece. That's awesome. Can I use a sight glass as a way to add flavors? Well, generally, a sight glass is just part of a column. So you need some type of way to infuse, right? So a lot of times people will either use a thumper to infuse. That way the vapor is going through a thumper and then getting infused with that flavor and then coming out and getting condensed. Now, I've seen a lot of people put sight glasses on top of their thumpers and have a valve below them, and they just use the sight glass to measure how much, of the infusion juices they're using, and that's fine. But yeah, most sight glasses are basically, let me show you a picture of this one. Are generally used on a column. And they do help to see that you're not puking. That's one of the best parts about having the sight glass on your column is you can see. Wait a minute. Where are all my pictures? My files. Okay. So let me find this pic for you. Yeah, here we go. So on this column here, you can see right below the deflegmator, you've got the sight glass there, right? Now, I like putting my copper mesh inside there so I can, and it's usually, I've got a little column similar to this that used to use. I'm getting ready to use a bigger one now, but, and you can see just how much condensation you're getting as you're using this, as you're using the deflegmator above it. So if you have your copper mesh in there, you can have your liquid kind of bouncing in the middle like you would on a bubble plate. So, yeah, that helps. That helps a lot. But yeah, I've seen a lot of people use the sight glass like on an infuser on top of a thumper. Let me see if I can find you a picture of that. And that works out perfectly. And I think that's what you're talking about. And a lot of people just use like jars and with a valve on top of the jar and tri-clamps. But I'm trying to find the sight glass, but most of it's jars. Here, let me pull up this pic. This Phil Billy's pic. He won't care. But yeah, a lot of times people will use something like this. Right? Or that could be a sight glass, right? Just imagine a sight glass there instead of the jar and with maybe a short spool above it. And you use your sight glass as kind of a measuring to see how much liquid you're putting in there. Kind of, you could actually label it and put little marks on it to, maybe, ounces, 5 ounces, 10 ounces, 15. But yeah, you can use it like that. But yeah, for those that aren't familiar with infusion process, this is what we're talking about. So basically in this jar, you'd have a lot of concentrated juice and you've got a little valve on this. So you can turn it upside down, try clamp it on there, open up the valve and dump that infusion into this thumper. Okay, now this thumper will have a drain on it. So as you run a couple of quarts off, you can drain it and then switch out the jars to another jar and dump more infusion liquid in there, and do that every couple quarts, to keep the flavor profile up. Another method of infusion. For those that aren't familiar with it, here's a typical jar rig infuser. Also from Phil Billy. What would the internet do without Phil Billy, man, making all these pictures for him? Definitely makes it a lot easier for me. So these are jar rigs. And you can see the copper line on top is just to help keep it all from shifting around and moving around. So you can see from the left, it's going to come in through the long pipe down. Yeah, and then into the next one and the next one, 3-jar rig. Works great. A lot of times people will infuse the first two and leave the last empty, or leave the first one, put some tails in it, and let the next two do the infusions. Either way is fine. And if you add a bypass system to this, when your jars get filled up, if they get filled up, you can bypass, slow things down, get your grill gloves on, take one jar out, dump it, add some more flavors, screw it back in, right? And then open up your bypass and then go back into it. But when we talk about infusion with jar rigs, that I would rather these be small little copper vessels that have an infusion port on it that you can just pour the stuff in, close up the valve, and have a drain in the bottom and dump it. That way you don't have to worry about your glass or taking them off and putting infusion in. Best to have a separate jar with juice ready, and then just screw it in there and let it heat up and do. That way you don't have to worry about pouring infusion juices into a hot jar, which could cause it to break. But there is some risk involved when using glass. I would rather use small copper vessels here, just, half-gallon copper vessels. But it works. Distillers yeast, good deal. You should be fine then. Yeah, but get the hydrometers and check your gravity out. But the worst thing that happen, it gets stuck, but you definitely need to try next time to start with some oyster shells in there. If your pH does crash, it's good to get these little pH strips. Let me see if I got a picture of those for you. You can get these at Amazon, and I don't know if I have a picture of these or not, but I do need to move some of these pictures I've got here to. Why is that not working? Oh my gosh. Let's see if I've got these. They're called, it's for kombucha, and they sell them on Amazon. And I know I made a screenshot of them before and I didn't save it, so I'm going to have to do it again. Hold on just a second. Cancel. Give me a picture of these. And they're for kombucha. Let's see. I don't think that's it. I think that's. Yeah, this is it. Now there is a brand on here that's a little bit cheaper than that on Amazon if you want to use it. But this is kind of what they look like. Mine's a different brand. These are a little bit more expensive, and they're all the same thing. But this will give you an idea of what I'm talking about. And they're just little test strips, but you can see how the color changes drastically between a 1 and a 2, and a 2 and a 3, and a 3 and a 4, and a 4 and a 5, and a 5 and a 6. It's enough changes that it's easy to read. Now, these that go from 0 to 15 or whatever, they don't change a lot between 1 to 2. It's a very gradual change. So they're much, much harder to read. This is for fermentation process because all we're dealing with things below neutral, right, which is 7. So all the pHs we're concerned with, if you're above 6.0, it's no bueno. You want it to be acidic, right? That helps keep your bacteria down. So this deals with just the pHs that we're interested in, and it's a lot cheaper in the long run than to get these pins. I used to do the pins, you can get them for $10, about the same price as this, but they don't last near as long as this tape does. And you have to calibrate them. You all have to use the solution to calibrate and get F all that. You don't want to do it. Trust me. It's more trouble than it's worth. I dealt with that shit. I got a little box full of them old yellow pH pins. Forget it. Don't even bother with them. You can if you want to get all scientific and geeky, it's fine. But these just use little tweezers, and it says use an inch. I use about a quarter and a half. It'll tell you the same. It doesn't have to be an inch long. And I just use tweezers, dip it in there, and hold it up. And man, it'll tell you instantly what your pH is. They're about $10 on Amazon. And just kombucha, KOMBUSCHA, I think it's spelled. And that's basically a fermented tea, and they deal with the same pH as we do. But yeah, they work great, and it's a lot better than calibrating and getting the solutions for calibrating and all this. Yeah, it just gets to be too much, and these work perfectly fine. They're real easy to read, and just lay them up there. And we don't need to be precise like in a chemistry lab or some some real high-end DNA extraction experiment or some shit like that, where you have to have the molality and molarity of the acids just right and the pH, and no, we don't need that exactness in what we're doing. We just want to know, is it in the 3s, is it in the 4s, and the 2s, am I yeast stressing or not? And this is what it'll tell you: 5.5.0 to 5.5 starting. Yeah, looks like it's somewhere in between those. Good, right? And that'll help you when you boil water, like we were talking about earlier, to do your conversions. Just make sure it's about the color green between 5 and 5.5. Not critical. Doesn't have to be exact. Doesn't have to be 5.3 or 5.2 like everybody targets. Yeah, it need to be 5. It doesn't have to be that exact, but it'll tell you: is it too acidic for my yeast? Am I getting into the 2s? Is my yeast going to stress? Do I need to add some pickling lime? And that's what we recommend to use instead of baking soda, which everybody wants to go to. Try to use pickling lime if you can. It's going to be easier on your yeast. Oh, yeah. Let me share these links real quickly, and then I'll be right back. I hate breaking right there, but let's see. LPR. I can't believe it didn't let me share it to my buddies. And Morgan's month. Damn. Need to move them up the list a little bit. Couple more and I'll be done. I got to share a little bit more than I usually do, so that was nice. This last one, I don't know. They get a little bit crazy on there. Okay. And that's taking a long time. Okay, finally. All right. So where was we? IGW. Have a good one, brother. Thanks for showing up, Brian. Appreciate y'all. There's a lot of people out there that listen that never chime in, and I definitely appreciate when you do. If you have any questions ever, feel free to jump in here and ask, or get on our YouTube. You can see the streaming thing on the bottom. the DIY shine is still bidding, or in the militia, jump in there and ask your questions. If you can't wait until Tuesday or Saturday, jump in there and just let us know, man. Ask any question you got. I've repeated the same questions over and over. Everybody has the same questions, and we're here to answer them over and over again as many times as we need to help get people started. So definitely appreciate the acknowledgement, though, man. And feel free to ask any questions that you got. What's going on, man? That's right. Hey, I learn every show. I learn something new too. So we're all here to learn and share. Do you think you could use a still to steam power itself? Well, you got to have a source of heat to begin with. So you're going to have to heat the steel with something to develop the steam to power itself. So you'd have to have something external heat source or something generating the steam from outside. Interesting thought, though. But yeah, there's a lot of steam. I've seen people use, like when we were talking about cooking the corn and worrying about scorching it. And they've got big, huge pots, right? So they got like a 30-gallon, fryer or a pot cooker. And then they set another pot inside that, like a double boiler, and boil the water outside as they're cooking, and gelatinizing their corn, which is great. If you got a couple of pots to do that, you don't have to worry about the steeping method. You don't have to worry about cooking it and getting it scorched. You can use this double boiler method, and it works great if you got pots big enough to do it. I got a buddy that does it that way. What's in the mash barrel right now at home? Still some potatoes. I get my potatoes done, man. Definitely, they've been sitting there. What happened? I've got this. I'll show it to you. Sitting right here next to me. I bought a nice. Well, if I get it out of there, I bought a nice column steel that uses these bubble plates in it, and I'll show you a picture of what I got. And when I arrived, I looked inside the box and everything looked good. So I did something stupid. I didn't open up the glass globes and make sure that some of them weren't broken. And guess what? You guessed it. Some of them were broken. This is what I bought. So when you look at this, it looks like it's just one big long piece of glass, but these are actually 4 separate globes. And one of my globes was broken. And I got it like in November. And I opened up the box and I got it. Everything's real well packaged. Look at everything, checked it. Yeah, everything looks fine. I just let it sit there. I didn't need it. I didn't have any use for it. So I did a dumb thing. I didn't look at each of the globes to make sure that they didn't get broken in shipping. So fast forward to a couple of weeks ago when I did my potatoes for my vodka, and really the first time I needed the column to get high proof because I was going to make vodka. Started putting together my column, and guess what? The very last globe I pull out, the bag is mushy. Its glass is just broken up. So it's been like 5 or 6 months, and I don't think I'm going to be able to return it. So I'm just going to have to bite the bullet and try to find another globe. But in the meantime, I'm just going to have to run it and strip it, right? Well, like we were talking before, and just strip it down and get it all run and out of the fermenter so I can start doing some grains. And just I'll do the final distillation on it when I get my glass globe. That's so stupid of me not to check that. Never do that. All right, we're all learning, right? And don't ever make that mistake. Anytime you order anything glass, when it first comes in, check it out. Doesn't matter if you're going to use it now or in 5 months, check it now. Yeah, because I'm past the return stage. Yeah, that's going to cost me. And it was shipped that way. The box wasn't damaged, so it was that way before it shipped. Now, the person that shipped it had no idea. It was a sealed box they just drop ship basically. I found out they're not a it's not like a business receives it, checks everything out, repackages it, has it on the store shelves. Not like that. This guy just basically takes orders and drop ships from another. I think this actually came drop ship from Amazon. So, but through his business, and it wasn't Phil or anybody like that. It wasn't somebody we know. It was a really good deal on it, but yeah, it got shipped from China. It got broken in the shipping from China, long before hydrometers. Yeah. Yeah, you definitely want to buy two when you get them. That's for sure. Oh, you talking about in the sight glass? I guess you could probably put some, like a screen with some solids in there. I really wasn't thinking about that. Yeah, you could start, or you could put like the candy in there we were talking about earlier. Put a screen in the bottom, and then fill it full of, your Jolly Rancher candies and let it cook through that. Yeah, I wasn't even thinking about that. Yeah, yeah, you could absolutely do that, but you're not going to be able to interchange it out during the distillation process. What's going on, Monty? Good to see you, brother. Um, you really don't have to do a vinegar run unless you start getting some green. If you see some green on your copper, then you definitely need to try to do a cleanup and a cleanup run. So it's just going to vary. Sometimes copper gets good and seasoned, and it won't get oxidized badly at all. And then sometimes people just like to use steel wool and clean and scrub and put scratches in it, and those scratches make it oxidize that much quicker, right? Or use peroxide with their citric acid or lemon juice or vinegar to make it work quicker and harsher, and that just makes more surface area. It etches basically into the copper and makes it more prone to get green, right? So, if you can continuously run it, just make sure you clean it up after each run. But yeah, worms are really bad for it. So, I'd run some vinegar, definitely if it's been a while and you see some greening inside your pot or inside your worm, definitely. But it really just depends on how oxidized it is. If it's like a penny, once a shiny penny, and then once it starts getting that oxidation, that browning, that's fine. It's not going to remove as many sulfites that way, but you're not going to get oxidation, right? You're not going to get that copper oxide and worry about all that because that'll ruin a distillate. You definitely, if it comes out green or blue, don't try to clean it up. It's just put it in a fantastic bottle and use it for glass cleaner because it's beyond drinking. It's toxic and it'll hurt your organs. If it doesn't kill you, it's still going to hurt you and hurt your organs. So don't do it. Don't try to clean it up. It's just not worth your health. Um, Probably, I don't know. Autobiography would be kind of boring. Um, it'd probably be, I had to check the statute of limitations on everything before I did an autobiography. But yeah, but and I know a lot of people doing books and stuff, and that's all cool and stuff. But I like getting on here and chatting, and I guess mine will be a video series, all the videos that I've done. Um, you know, if you they're on the Philbilly YouTube channel, if you want to go look at all the videos from the past and stuff and watch, that'll probably be my legacy. I doubt I ever put anything together like that. I'm not interested in anything other than promoting the craft. I'm not in it for money or none of that. I just enjoy getting on here and chatting with everybody, helping everybody, answering questions, and having a few shots with my buddies. Cheers. Speaking of which, it's Saturday, people. This get my damn beard stuck in it. The pickling lime, yeah, it's something that's used for um, Well, it's used in a lot of, stuff in the kitchen. Most of your wives may have it already. You don't even know. But it's pickling lime. It's good for bringing down your pH. Instead of using baking soda, which has sodium in it, which the sodium can really put a lot of stress on your yeast and kill yeast, your pickling lime doesn't. So it's better to use to bring your pH up when you get too acidic and you forgot to use the oyster shells, like old Santa said. So then you'll have to use some pickling lime. And that decreases the acidity. So if you get into the twos, so if you got this and you're looking at it and it's orange to red and you're getting to the ones, 0.5s, then 2.0, 2.5s, then it's time to put the pickling lime in. If it's in threes and 3.5s, 4.0s, that's fine. Most of your yeast, unless you're using a bread yeast, most of your yeast is going to be fine for this. Wine yeast and champagne yeast. Your data yeast will probably be fine from 3.5 up. But wine yeast are fine from 3.0, 3.2 up. They're fine. They actually, they've been acclimated for that because that's the low pH is what helps keep bacteria and things from building up in from the solids and the fruit and stuff in your wines. But secondary fermentation, you generally move all those solids away anyway, but you want to keep it acidic to keep the bacteria and keep the oxygen out. That's why we put that, the bubbler on top to keep the oxygen out, because without oxygen and in an acidic environment, without oxygen in an anaerobic environment, then you can keep the bacteria down. And that's why they do it. It's just like canning. What's going on, James? Good to see you, brother. What's going on, Wayne? Good to see you, my friend. Hope everybody's having a good weekend. Yeah, pickling lime. Good stuff to use. Man, you wouldn't believe the deal I found on potatoes. It was like 20 cents a pound on potatoes. So I bought like 100 pounds of potatoes and did about a 30-gallon mash, and we've been eating a lot of potatoes. They're good russets, man. They were good potatoes too. But it was a killer deal, man. It was $1 for like a 5-pound bag, and yeah, I bought 20 bags. But it's good. It smells like a good potato beer. I've never had a potato beer. I'm gonna have to try a little sippy sip of it, see what it tastes like. But it smells good. It's doing good. But it's sat a little bit longer than I wanted it to. But because of that column being broke, I'm just going to go ahead and run it through my little column like this. I got one of these little setups, and they do fine. I can get 180 some proof out of this with that deflagmator on there, running cool water through it. So, I mean, that'll strip it pretty well. Yeah, Wayne makes some good stuff, man. Sure does. What's going on, Mr. Aubrey? Good to see you, brother. No problem, brother. Yeah, that's good stuff. You definitely want to keep that in your box. There's certain things that you definitely want to keep, in your toolkit. Hydrometers we talked about, pickling lime. I like to keep citric acid. Well, I use an acid blend. It's got citric acid, malic acid, and tartaric acid. It's a winemaker's blend, and it's pretty good too. It works fine. But yeah, that and potassium metabisulfate, potassium sorbate, which are basically potassium metabisulfate is a Camden tablets. You'll see that in a lot of your wine recipes and stuff for killing wild yeast and bacteria and kind of basically, making things sterile before you start. So having alcohol illegal. What if there was a social casino that had prizes of alcohol? Could you structure something like that and be legal? Um, you know, having alcohol is not illegal. Distilling it is. So, or having untaxed liquor is. But a lot of people think because of the new home distilling regulation that went through makes it home distilling legal. It doesn't. It makes it legal to distill at home if you have the permits. Whereas used to, even if you went through the government and got all your permits and everything that you wanted, if your job plan was to distill at home, they won't pass it. They won't permit it, or they wouldn't at the time. So they would not allow you to do a little craft distillery at home. Period. Ever. None. Zilch. And their argument was, in court, well, we can't tell if they're paying the proper tax on things. If they're being honest in their paperwork and they're paying tax on things. And of course, the argument to that was, are you going to make all the home businesses illegal? Because every home business is the same way. The cash operating business, home business. If somebody runs a lawn service out of their home, how do you know how many lawns they're mowing a day? Do you know if they're going to be honest and tell you how much exactly they made that year? It's the same thing. So that really kind of took the argument away, so they made it to where you could actually legally distill at home if you went through the TTB federally and got your permit. But in an area, if you had a legal permit to distill and you had a permit to gamble, unless they had laws that permitted the prize from being alcohol, as long as you were over 21, I don't see them being a problem with that. But you would definitely want to check with attorneys in the state and make sure everything was on the up and up. Yeah, we've got gambling here, and horse racing has been a big part of Kentucky forever, and that's gambling. But the casino gambling they don't allow. But at Red Mile, they've got slot machines, and the slot machines are like horse races, right? Right? They're little horse races, video horse races. It's silly. It's still a slot machine. So they kind of get around it with all that. But I think gambling's fine. I think a lot of people have trouble gambling and they kind of get caught up in it and can lose a lot of money. And you go to a casino and you see how much money it costs to build that place and to pay for all the machines in there and all the people working and all the lights. That's not from donations, man. That's from losers. So, it's Vegas was built on losers. And if everybody won money, if even half the people won money, there would be none. There would be no lights and buildings and all that. So, gambling is usually a losing proposition unless you're playing poker and you're skilled and you have a little bit of control. The rest is just, chance and luck. And it's like a lotto ticket. There's more losers than winners. That's how they get these millions and billions of dollars for the lotto is from losers. So, I enjoy gambling, but I'm a poker player. I like being able to control and bluff and play the cards and play people, because you're not just playing, when you play poker, you're not just playing cards, you're playing people, as well. And you use a little psychology and you got to be able to read people and look for tells. And, there's a little more skill to it than just pulling that little one-armed bandit, waiting for your lucky day. That's always nice. And I tell you what, those old jars that sit there, man, when you drink it, it's going to be like, man, that's a lot better than it was when I jarred it. And they age well. And just like wine, you don't have to have this in a wood barrel that's charred to get its flavor better and to mellow it out and smooth it out. You use a barrel to get the vanilla notes, the smoky flavor of the char, the color, the bitterness of the tannins, all that, But the esterification process takes place in this just like it does in a wine bottle, right? And they definitely taste better on time. Yeah, it's all about tax. That's right. Yeah, and that's an argument. A lot of people have is, I go to the store and I buy groceries and I pay tax on that. But if I grow my own tomatoes, am I tax evading from buying tomatoes and paying a tax on them? Well, a lot of places don't charge tax on groceries, but you know what I'm saying. So is that considered a tax evasion? Right. Yeah, it's so it's basically in the fifth district. Um, yeah, it's final until you know somebody tries to contest it, and then it'll go to either get sent back or go to the Supreme Court. But yeah, it's for right now. You can get a legal distilling license from the TB. What is it, TBA, whatever, TBB, whatever. What is that? Yeah, the TTB, Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau, TTB, Tax and Trade Bureau. But yeah, you can get the TTB license and do it at home if it's legal in your state. So, like in Missouri, for example, in that state of Missouri, it's legal to distill in your home as long as it stays in your home and you do under 100 gallons per person, but it's still federally illegal. But if you apply for a federal TTB license and through the home distillers or hobby distillers, and your business plan is to just make it for personal consumption at home, you can now get supposedly that TTB license. Now they're not going to like it. They're going to try to fight it. So it's still up in the court, but a lot of people are under the false sense that it's legal to distill at home now for everybody, and that's not the case. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's free to join right now. I posted a post about it in the militia and on the DIY Shine and Steel Building page. Definitely join, and the more people, more voices we have out there, the more it's going to help. And that's why I try to get on here and preach it. It's a violation of our Constitution in our pursuit of liberty. Of happiness. So life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, and it's not hurting or affecting anybody other than myself. And it's no different than making beer or wine. It's all about taxes. So, you know, make it legal for home distilling up to a certain point, maybe 30 gallons or less boiler, 100 gallons or less, on possession at any given time. That's 2 barrels, right? 106. Make it 53 barrels, 53 gallon barrels. Make it 106 gallons. So 2 barrels, man, that's a lot of liquor. I don't think I'd drink that. So if you could do a couple of barrels, you know, a year and put a date and stamp on it and prove that you did it at that year and be able to have, X amount every year and just accumulate it and let it age, hell, after a few years, you wouldn't need to make any more, man. You'd have 200 or 300 gallons. It'd be awesome. Do you really? Wow. See, groceries here are tax free. Any of the groceries and foodstuffs that you don't pay tax on. Now, if it's like pop, you'll pay a tax on that. But most of your groceries and stuff like that, you won't. There's no tax on it. Yeah. So if you grow your own tomatoes, you're evading taxes, man. That's tax evasion, right? Crazy. I think we should get away from the tax at all. Basically, taxes, are kind of originally done for the war effort, and they just started getting a little greedy and realized that, hey, you too, Jess, we'll have you in our prayers Monday, or we'll have you keep Jess in her prayers, or Marie in her prayers for Monday. She's having a surgery, so we'll definitely keep you in our prayers, hon. So we will see you Tuesday, and hopefully things will be well, and you'll have good news for us. They can try. That's all they can do. I don't think it should be taxed either. I think up to a certain amount, personal consumption, like Missouri has a perfect setup. Really, I've read through their laws. You can go to Missouri.gov and get all the information. Don't get it from me. Don't get it from all these Facebook attorneys and all this bullshit. Go straight to the .gov website and get your information. The source is very important when you get all this stuff. So go directly to them, get the source, get the information. And I've read all of Missouri's in depth. Basically, in Missouri, you can distill 100 gallons per year, and if you have two people in the household that are 21 or above, up to two, no more than two, you can have more people above 21 in the household. You just only two of them can have their own alcohol up to 100 gallons. So you can have 200 gallons, and I'm assuming that's per year. But I don't know how they're going to determine what year you actually made it, and if you have 400 gallons and you started 4 years ago, if that's going to be okay, or they're going to, I don't know. But you can't take it out of the home. If you do want to take it to something like a wedding shower, they did make some, certain exceptions, but you had to pay a fee to take it to a certain party or something like that and use it outside the home, and you had to get a permit for it. But aside from that, it had to be in the home consumption, right? You couldn't take it out and use it. Couldn't take the ball games, drink it. Couldn't take it to Fourth of July party at Jim Bob's and drink it. No, it had to stay at home. So, that's okay. At least you can do it and distill without them bothering you. Now the feds may come in and give you shit, but the state's not going to hassle it. They don't care. Other states like North Carolina and others have ALE, alcohol law enforcement. They're very, very strict. Absolutely nothing, no. And they catch wind of it. They're coming. They're kicking your door down. They're taking everything you got. It's night and day, in between states. I don't like that. I think all states should be pretty much the same when it comes to things like that. But, this it's crazy. We talked about that in a lot of weeks. It's just, every state you have to break out the law book just to see what you can do in each state. I think that's pretty fucking crazy. I think basically you should have the same liberties and in every state that you do in the other states, right? They should all be pretty much. I know the constitutional law was written on the state laws and the states, creating their own laws, and which is fine as far as fiscal things and business, and decisions and things like that, and fees and regulations on certain businesses and stuff. That's fine. But when it comes to more what I would consider a constitutional matter, I think it should be more of a federally centralized, rule. And I just don't like it. Don't like it. Yeah, I know. By the time you buy all the dirt, the fertilizers, the plants to start with, or the seed trays to get them started in, and all the stuff that you buy, and all the garden, the tiller, moto tillers, and all this stuff. Yeah, it's you definitely pay more for that than you are for a few dozen tomatoes every year, right? Yeah, well, I got it pretty good. I grow like 15 tomatoes, well, I got 16 tomatoes out, and usually about a dozen pepper plants, and usually maybe some radishes and onions and lettuce. Well, there's so much waste, and we found so much waste, in fraud, what they found in Wisconsin and California, Ohio, and Florida. It's in every state. There's waste in every state, and it's a failure of state and federal governments to follow through and check and see where every bit of those tax dollars are going and making sure they're being spent for what they're spent for. We just blindly been giving money to people here, year, okay, whatever, and it's been going back to politicians and help funding their, parties and their re-elections. Yeah, on both sides. So yeah, that's not good. And it, all right, what we talking about? You got for a 50-gallon steel. Are you asking how many potatoes for a 50-gallon to mash in 50 gallons? Shoot, you're gonna need. I used almost 20 gallons of water and 80 pounds. So I used 4 pounds of potatoes per gallon, and that wasn't enough, right? I didn't get a great conversion. So I had to add some sugar. Technically, the 6 to 8 pounds per gallon is probably pretty right if you just want to use the sugars from the potatoes and use your enzymes too. Your high temp and your glucose just the same as you would any other, grain or any other starch. But yeah, you'd need 6 to 8 pounds per gallon. So if you want to do 50 gallons, you'd have to have you know, 400 pounds of potatoes to mash in for 50 gallons. And for 50 gallons still, yeah, 50 gallons, because by the time you did all that, you'd probably get about 40, 45 of good liquids out of it. So yeah, it takes a lot of taters. Sure does, brother. Yeah, I don't mind paying my fair share either, but there's just too much waste. And and it's just not rich people. It's politicians that are getting, and I guess they're getting rich from it. But you look at all the money that was wasted, and look at what Doge found. That's just and what that Nick Shirley found. That's just the script touching the iceberg, man. We're talking about hundreds of billions a year. If we could eliminate all the fraud, we'd never have to worry about Social Security. We'd never have to worry about Medicare, Medicaid. If we eliminated the fraud from all the systems and all the money that are going to all these different places, um, we would be able to secure a lot of these social programs that everybody seems to want, and health and education. Exactly, we'd be able to take care of all of it. So I can't imagine any person, being unhappy. There were so many people. I can't believe Elon Musk. He's digging into people's, information. They're going to steal information. Here they're saving the taxpayers billions of dollars. And they're still bitching about it. That's just stupid. I don't care what party you're in, but anybody, if you think that uncovering fraud and fraudulent spending is bad, then I don't know what it's going to take to help you. It Democrats, Republicans alike should be cheering for that. You know, and I think it's just that we've gotten so hyper partisan that it's just the person that did it happened to be a Republican, and the Democrats are mad. And if a Democrat had done it, the Republicans would be mad. It's just stupid. What's going on, Kurt? Good to see you, man. Yeah, we're still in here, man. Still going strong. We've got off liquor and talking about a little bit of politics, so we need to get back on the topic. Going electric with a 50-gallon steel. No, I'm trying to stay up, man. I don't have Kurt with me tonight, so I've definitely got a Clint with me tonight. I've got to stay up on everything. So old Clint's busy tonight, so we got to try to. Got to stay up on it. Going electric with a 50-gallon. Oh, how many watts? So with a 50 gallon, you're going to probably need a couple elements, probably I would say a couple of 45 to 5500s. And I think they make a dual um, system where you can run two elements off one, SCR. And if so, I talk to Phil Billy and Jason Costa. Those two guys are the ones to talk to about setting up the electric. But yeah, 245s or 255s for a 50 gallon would be good. Yep. It may get back to that. Who knows? Yeah, bartering is definitely good. So much headspace is too much. Um, really, you don't want to get less than 30%. So you can run a still easily on half. That's not an issue. But you don't want to get too little in there to where you have too much vapor, above it. So yeah, you don't want to run any less than 30-40% would be pretty much my minimums. But I've never seen a figure that says never run below this point. But I think 30 to 40 would definitely be the minimum that I would run. Especially if you're running a still with elements in it, you definitely don't want to distill down to where the elements will come above. Once they get exposed to air, they'll burn out instantly. But yeah, I would 50 is a good number. Really, you probably shouldn't run your still less than 50, but I think 40, you'd be okay. 30 is probably pushing it, but I would definitely never even dream of running it less than 30. But I think 50 is a good number. And it's just a safety issue. You like those auto flowers, huh? Well, the auto flowers are great if you're in the legal industry. A lot of states, um, you know, like mine in the past would put a limit. So five less than five plants was a misdemeanor. Five or more was a felony. So if you had four little auto flowers, you're not going to get much production. So a lot of people were doing like 20 or 30 auto flowers and, not much, maybe, quarter pound each plant and and they instant felons. Whereas you could grow one 3 pound plant and have the same thing and you were a misdemeanor, right? So if it's in the legal industry, the auto flares are great though. A lot simpler to do. Yep. That's what keeps inflation down, that and the interest rates. Hello, Miss Tammy. How are you? I'm doing good. Thank you. Hope you're having a good weekend. Hope your hip is healing up good. Well, you want to keep it that way. That definitely benefits us. We definitely want to keep the. We definitely want to keep the petrodollar though. That definitely benefits us. That helps. That really helps keep our dollar um, worth more. Hey, that's fine. Let's stay on topic. Insulation, you know, I guess you could. There's nothing that says that you couldn't if you're running electric steel. I mean, you could use like the same insulation, the same foam that they use on piping, on hot water and piping and stuff. I'm sure it's rated to over 200 degrees. 200 degrees really at nothing, and that's about 200 210 is basically the highest your steel is going to get. So No, you definitely want to have liquid above your element. If the liquid gets below that's what regulates that element and the temperature. It heat sinks into the liquid around it. If it doesn't have that, it'll burn up in a flash. It'll be like a flash bulb, man. It'll burn out in a heartbeat. Just water heaters are the same way. So definitely have to keep it submerged. So never ever, like if your elements are in the middle of your steel, you generally want it in the lower third. But if they're in the middle, you definitely have to start high and don't ever distill past that point, right? Because they will burn out in a heartbeat. Yep. Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. Thank you, Tammy. Yeah, we'll have us another toast to all the dads. Yeah. Cheers. Man, that's hot. 140 proof. I don't mean hot, but 140 proof. Stout. I'm glad to hear it. Right? Is that what it is now for recreational? So is that for recreational or for medical card holders? So 6 per adult, 2 adults max. Yeah, that's the way they do with the alcohol laws in a lot of places. Yeah, we don't want that to happen. I'm sure a lot of countries would love that, but that would be not good for most of the world. Okay, yeah. It's going to be tough. It requires a lot of watts to do it off grid. You'd definitely be better with going with a wood fire if you're getting off grid and using just the coals. So you basically start a fire, let it get down to the coals, and then put your steel in or push it under your steel. And if you live in an area with coal, I mean, it wouldn't take much coal, man. If you've ever heated with coal, you know. But yeah, it's regulating is pretty tough with fire. I started out with using fire. It's really tough, but off the grid, you're gonna have to use that. It's gonna be tough to generate. I mean, if you got a generator, that's fine, but that takes fuel. And how off the grid are you if you have to go get gasoline at the gas station, right? So I try to set it up where you can make you a little furnace, with rocks, and build around your steel and have maybe a plate of iron in the bottom of it or a grate for your steel to sit on, and then have some wood underneath that. When you look at your hydrometer and it's not going down anymore, and it's basically your fermentation it's called a stuck fermentation. And there's a lot of different reasons that can stall or stick your ferment up. Temperature, keep if the temperature drops to a certain point, your yeast gets dormant. Um, yeah, I love Boilermakers. That's what I like beer. Um, but temperature is first and foremost. pH drops are a lot of the problems too. And sometimes too, you think it's stalled, and technically you just got sugars in there that aren't fermentable. So you drop your hydrometer in there and it says 1.020, but no matter how much yeast you put in there, no matter what you do, it yeah, I like Boilermakers. So no matter what you do, it it doesn't drop anymore. You can throw more yeast in, the pH is fine, the temperature's fine. I don't know what it could be. Why? And a lot of times it's just that the sugars you have aren't fermentable sugars. They didn't get fully converted. So they're still polysaccharides or oligosaccharides, and they're not, the yeast can't consume them. So There's a lot of things that can cause a stuck fermentation, but generally it's temperature or pH that sticks them up. Usually, if your yeast is viable from the start, it will remain viable and they'll multiply, and they'll, unless it's a wild yeast, which tend to work off really quickly, and then once the alcohol gets to a certain level, it just kills them off, and that can also happen, Craig. You can get to such a high ABV that, like if you're using a bread yeast and you get above 1.090, you're gonna probably kill all the yeast before you get to 12%, because that's about the same number your bread yeast dies at. If you get a 1.1 or above that in the red zone here, you're going to have sugars at the end that those yeast can't eat because they just can't get beyond a 12%. Now, if you're using a wine yeast or a champagne yeast or a daty yeast, they're acclimated and have the alcohol tolerance, where they can go a little bit higher. So, again, that would depend on your yeast. But generally, it's pH and temperature, and just pH, I'd say, would be probably one of the most. Well, I don't know. Every winter, every fall, where people learn during the spring and summer, and everything's great. A lot of beginners is great. Everything's working fine. Works off in a few days to a couple of weeks. It's awesome. And then all of a sudden in the wintertime, it's like, man, it's been 4 weeks. What the hell? Well, what's the temperature? Well, it's 72. What yeast did you use? Daty. Okay, well, that daty likes 80 something, right? So that 73, it's almost dormant. It's going to take a long time at that temperature. So we have to figure out a way to put our little oil filled heaters around it or something to heat it up, or get the wraps to wrap your barrels or something like that to get the temperature up to, where it'll pick back up and ferment, right? Yeah, I used to. That's about the only way I really liked beer, was a Boilermaker. Uh, I'm not big into the creamy stuff. I'm somewhat lactose intolerant. I don't like. I mean, I like the taste of it and the creams and stuff, but I can't imagine getting drunk on something with a lot of creams and milks and stuff. I don't want to see that coming out my nose, man. I'd be spewing that stuff everywhere. No, thank you. Right. Yeah. And well, most of your wine yeast are going to be tolerant down, and down into the 70s, where they really prefer, and it's really those temperatures that you want to do wines and brandies with, right? But like a daty yeast, Red Star daty, it prefers mid 80s. A bread yeast, it prefers mid to high 80s. So, knowing your yeast and what temperatures it prefers, absolutely. Yep, no problem at all. Be careful with those barrel bands, though. They work great, but man, those things get hot enough you can almost distill with that some bitch, and you can definitely melt a plastic barrel in a heartbeat. Those things get very hot. Well, a lot of them do. So start very low and at hardly zero, and just inch it up as you need, and check your temperature, because those things get really, real hot. And I think most of them are designed for metal barrels and to keep, a lot of fats and stuff from hardening, and and for that kind of purpose. So be very careful with them. I, you know, when I first started with the wine, there was a few. I like getting my information from. I like getting it from good sources. I mean, some people just go to Reddit and just read what anybody wrote and take it as scientific fact, and you know, don't just don't. Um, but I would go to some of these EDUs and a lot of educational sites and actual businesses that had information on there versus just Joe Schmo, and what he said and thought. I've always tried to, it's like, getting your information on distilling and legals and laws. The worst thing you can do is consult with somebody on Facebook or rely on a friend. Find an attorney or find a good source. Go to the .gov and find out what the laws are. If you want to know what a law is, you go to their gov site in each state and find out. But it got a lot of creams and stuff in it. But I'm trying to think of there's let me check here. There were some wine places like Wine Institute. I got information from them. It's an advocacy group for California wineries. They have really good. Um, Trying to look on here. I could probably go to. Let me see. It's going to be on this other computer though, where I have most of that. Let me check this. I have so many. Let me just type in wine in the search. I have so many PDFs and so many recipes. Um, but yeah, most of those I can't remember any in particular. Um, as far as videos wise, I'm not big on those. I do like going to scientific places though, and institutes and educational places that teach it, and actually wineries. I did consult with a local vintner who has a winery and got a lot of input and a lot of info from him and how he did things, and that was really helpful. But definitely look for good sources. Um, just asking on and we tell people to come to our Facebook group and ask, and we can control pretty much the answers and keep a lot of the false answers out there. Now a lot of it's opinion, and anytime it's something opinion wise, oh yeah, Reddit is horrible. It's a bunch of people that's never done it acting like an authority in it, and try to go to Reddit for legal info and legal advice. Crazy. Irish cream beer in an acid. That just sounds horrible. That's disgusting. I do like cottage cheese though. That's horrible. Oh, YouTube wise, I can't. I do believe there probably were a few, but I think it was from scientific, more reliable sources. Yeah, I watched Barley, and Philbilly and Bearded and Bored and Still It, Jesse at Still It, and I've watched a lot of those videos and stuff, and those are good. Yeah, I like George. Yeah, George is good. And that's kind of, watching George and stuff, and used to, when George was in control, he was able to answer on a lot of his videos and stuff, but he got bought out, and I guess he had a non-compete clause when they bought him out, so he couldn't just open up another thing and continue doing what he was doing, and that's why we don't see him much anymore. And but yeah, but the thing, my whole thought process was, if somebody has a question now, they have to watch, days worth of videos to get their answer. So it'd be nice if, we could have somebody that could do a podcast or something where we could just get a straight answer, right? And get your question answered, for a lot of beginners and intermediates. So that was one of the reasons that I've always wanted to, even when I did podcasts with Mark and Roger and all that before, I always wanted to do this, and kind of did that and got away from my dream of doing this, and finally got to do this. And this is what I've always wanted, is just be able to help answer questions directly, and give somebody a good answer. And after seeing so many bullshit and wrong, and like I said before, if it's an opinion, I'll state as an opinion, and I'll say, this, well, I think this, but you can do it that way. There's a lot of different ways or whatever, but there's certain facts, right? And scientific facts. And I just can't stand it to see somebody spewing, well, and I don't blame them because they just got misinformed, but eventually there was somebody originally that just bullshitted and didn't know what they were talking about, just made some shit up or just pulled some shit out of their hat, and then other people repeated it all the way down the line, and it's just, people just kept getting misinformed and repeating it. And it's like, man, that's just wrong. It's just, don't do it that way. That's wrong. I appreciate it, man. I enjoy it, and I learn things too, and sometimes I might not have an answer to I don't have all the answers, but I will find a scientific or good answer for it. Even if I have to do some research on it, I'll find an answer for you. I mean, I don't profess to know it all. That's for damn sure. And I learn all the time on here. Hope old Clint's doing all right. He's been working on his car, trying to get his car fixed. Got to get his AC fixed. He's cooking down there, man. It's hot. So he's busy. Well, just, if it's opinion, you know, tell your opinion. But you've been on here long enough, and you've read and educated yourself. Pretty much you have most of the answers by now. I repeat them often enough, and I don't mind it. I know a lot of people, in the groups are like, "Oh my God, why don't you just read down 5 lines and you'll see somebody else asked that question last week?" Okay, well, answer the question or shut the f up. Instead of posting your trolling and your bullshit, either answer it or just scroll on by. But they can't. They can't bring themselves to it. Well, that's a stupid question. Somebody asked that last month or last week. Okay, then they're going to ask it again, and you ask the same fucking question too. Everybody has the same questions, and the only one that's dumb is the one that's not asked. It's one that So don't ever be afraid to ask, and don't ever be afraid to help. And if you're not sure, give me a shout. I'll try to answer it. If I can't, we'll find the answer. It's not it's not rocket science. It's science, but it's not rocket science. Nah, the basics. There might be some advanced stuff that go over our heads, but we know pretty much most of the basics and the intermediate stuff. But I don't profess to know it all. And it's as far as the chemistry wise, I can't remember my college chemistry. I haven't practiced it. If I had a laboratory, and for the last 40 years of my life worked in a lab doing this or ran a distillery doing all this and worked with formulas and chemical equations and all that, I'd probably be able to answer a lot more of the higher end questions. But you know, I just haven't dedicated my life to that. So I haven't, it's not something that I researched since I took organic chemistry. All right, y'all. Well, it's about 10:30. It's Saturday night. I guess let y'all get off here and go have a good time. Ann's got to work tomorrow, so she's about her bedtime. She's got to get up at 5. So it was good seeing everybody. I'm sorry I missed Tuesday, but I feel a lot better now and not quite spry as I used to be, but I'm feeling better. No, and it's really surprising, how a lot of if you look at the history of distilling, they didn't understand the science behind what they did, but they through the scientific method by trial and error, they came up with a lot of the answers that you would have to, perform in a laboratory and, to get the answers they figured out on their own, right? So it's amazing to see how, innovation and innovative they were and how, they don't know why it was doing it, but it was doing it, right? And they would figure these things out, just like using the malts and to convert and to get more sugars. They didn't know why in the hell. They didn't know about all these polysaccharides and cleaving, glycosidic bonds and all this stuff, but they knew that when they used those malted grains, they'd get more sugar than they did just using the regular, corn. So it's amazing how they learned and figured things out without the science. Right. And I know Oshin's done that in the past, ask questions just to help the beginners who has an ask or might be curious or wanting to know. Because a lot of people will um, they'll listen to this show and they depend on other people asking these questions. It's questions they have, but they don't want to get their name on here. They and understandably they don't want to draw any attention to themselves or get the heat on them, or maybe they live in a state with an ALE that would see them on Facebook asking questions and look them up, right? So it's understandable. And if you are one of those people, just continue to listen. But if you do have a question, jump on YouTube, create a fake. You can create an email address with, I guess, this new proton.me. Free email addresses, no tracing, no tracking, no questions asked. And you can do it, under a VIP or VPN. So if you want, and create a YouTube, um, fake YouTube name, whatever, and ask your questions through that. You know, be anonymous. And even in our DIY Shine and Steel building, we now through Facebook allows, anonymous people to ask questions anonymously. So you can, and ours is enabled in DIY Shine and Steel building. It's enabled. So, I mean, the admins know who it is, but nobody else does. They can't tell, only the admin. And that would be me and another person. So you don't have to worry about that either. Yeah. Yeah, it's good seeing you, brother. That's good to hear, my friend. Yep. Happy Father's Day to everybody out there. Hope all the dads out there, have a good time tomorrow with your young ones. And if not, maybe you can work on having some. That's a good thing to do as well. What's going on, Brian? Good to see you, brother. You caught us right as we're getting ready to tune off, man. But glad everybody tuned in. Happy Father's Day again. We will see everybody back here on Tuesday, the 23rd. Till then, have a great weekend. Peace out. Love y'all, and we will see you Tuesday. See y'all later.